Well, I'm all packed, ready to go to the airport. Got my ticket to Bombay, but I've also got this. And you know, I think in these days, this is a safer and surely more exciting way to go. I'm going to drive. It was on an impulse that I decided to drive from Delhi to Mumbai, something I haven't done in years. But then the pandemic makes you do some strange things. More than anything, this road trip was a chance to break free after months and months of a stifling lockdown. There's nothing more liberating than a road trip in a fast car. And when that fast car is a 600 horsepower BMW M8, it becomes a road trip to savor. Now in this car, I could easily reach Mumbai in less than 2 days. But in the M8, you want to take the long way home, even if it adds a couple of days. First stop is Jaipur, and the 240 km drive gives me a good chance to get acquainted with the colossal power of the M8's 4.4 litre twin-turbo V8. The savage acceleration is your weapon for slow-moving trucks. In fact, it's so addictive, I must confess, it's really hard to drive on the silent side of that damn speed limit warning. Even Google Maps can't comprehend the pace of the M8, and the ETA to Jaipur just kept tumbling and was finally slashed by an hour. Entering Jaipur, I could feel the M8 size, and I have to carefully thread past auto rickshaws and other mixed traffic in the narrow lanes of the pink city. My heavy right foot had depleted the M8's 68 litre tank, so I hunt for a pump and luckily find one with 99 octane fuel. High octane fuel is recommended, but comes at a price. Well, that's what it's cost me just to drive from Delhi to Jaipur. I've got Power 99, which is great, but which is not so great. It's at 118 rupees per litre. And the M8 drank 67 litres for doing about 200 odd Ks. And it cost me 8,000 bucks. Now, that's more than my Delhi Bombay ticket. Who said driving was cheaper? I rolled into the Jai Mahal Palace an hour earlier than expected, which gave me extra time to just unwind and relax in this fabulous hotel. Wow, what a day. It started off with the fabulous M8 and it's ended with this fabulous peacock suite at the Jai Mahal Palace Hotel. Life couldn't be better. The Jai Mahal Palace is a jewel of Rajasthan's rich heritage, and the sprawling 18-acre grounds have a real openness that makes you feel naturally socially distanced. The 360k drive to Jaipur is just brilliant and tells you why Rajasthan is the best state for a road trip. The trouble is I had no time to get a FASTag, so no contactless payments when I wanted it most. Handling coins and notes is not something you want to be doing. And to make it worse, with no FASTag, the toll was doubled. Traffic thins out quickly as you leave Jaipur and you're onto a wide and empty highway. You can see for miles and miles on this divided highway that slices through the flat expanse of this desert. You can really hold some serious speeds for long spells. It's on this road that the M8 really shines as a GT cruiser. The faster you go, the better it feels. The ride is supple enough to cushion you from the few bumps that spring at you. We had other excitement too, like this encounter with a sambar that just strolled past when I stopped for a break. It felt so surreal, as if the sambar too was enthralled with the M8. I was worried about the low 130mm ground clearance and that front splitter which sits so close to the road. But the M8, it just coolly sailed over all the speed breakers, diversions and potholes thrown at it. In fact, I'm really proud that I did the entire 1700 km journey without a single scratch on those lovely 20-inch alloys. There are lots of places to stop and eat on the highway, but in these pandemic days, you want to be as far away from people as possible.
Now, normally on a road trip like this, we'd stop at one of these dhabas, sit on a khatia and have a hot chai. But quite frankly, these days, it's safer to carry your own food and find a picnic spot.
With a packed lunchbox from the Taj, I enjoyed one of those simple but forgotten pleasures, a picnic by the roadside. The M8's thirst for fuel meant stops to fill up were rather frequent. The last stretch to Jodhpur was a single lane, but that didn't slow the M8 down. Other than our holy cows which thought they owned the road, there was no traffic at all. Once again, I beat Google's ETA to Jodhpur by a good 2 hours, and the time saved was well spent in the grandeur of the majestic Umaid Bhawan Palace. What you experience here is not just one of the best hotels in the world, but what it feels like to be royalty, to actually live like a king. A perfect end to yet another thrilling day. It's a late morning start from Umaid Bhawan, and it's a good thing I'm traveling light. The spare tire eats much of the boot space and you can't squeeze in more than a couple of bags. After feeling like a king at the Umaid Bhawan, I'm back down to earth, which is the road to Ahmedabad, a good 450 km away. The highway to Ahmedabad via Siroi doesn't have much traffic, but you have to watch out for cows and idiots driving on the wrong side. And after 1,000 kilometers, we finally have some corners, and that is something to relish.
So for the majority of this trip, we've just had largely straight roads, dual carriageways, triple carriageways, single lane roads, but they've all been straight. And now on this stretch from Sirohi to Abu Road, it does get a little twisty, and these long sweepers you have, it's absolute M8 country. This car just revels in this sort of terrain.
The M8 feels rock steady, flowing from one bend to another with just minimal steering inputs. This is absolute bliss. Entering Gujarat, my smile disappears. It's because Gujarat's busy roads have put the brakes on the M8. Traffic is thick on the Palanpur-Ahmedabad highway and progress is slow. But the M8 isn't complaining. It's quite happy at 50 Ks as it is at 250. The ferocious acceleration comes in handy closing gaps, but for the last 50 Ks, I take it completely easy. I'm tired. Not the perfect end to what started out as a great day. The plan was for a crack of dawn start, but I overslept, and by the time I got going, the city was wide awake and the final leg home started smack in the middle of rush hour. Wiggling through an unruly mix of auto rakes, cyclists and whatnot, I'm made aware that the M8 is a very wide car, and the city's monstrous speed breakers need to be treated with respect. It takes me a good hour to reach the Ahmedabad-Vadodara highway, and now the M8 is back in its stride.
Now the Ahmedabad-Baroda highway, it's honestly one of the best highways in the country. It is really world class because it's so smooth, perfectly paved, and frankly you can max out any car if you have the space. The only trouble is that it's largely a two-lane highway. And that can be quite frustrating when you come up against a truck or two trucks, one of which is doing 20 kilometers an hour and the other doing 21 kilometers an hour and trying to overtake.
The 540 km Ahmedabad-Mumbai home run is the longest and not exactly fun. This is the busiest bit of the GQ, and to make matters worse, there are some major diversions which make the route on Google Maps turn into a heart-sinking red. The brilliant and empty roads of Rajasthan already feel like a distant dream. After 4 days in a car that can now be called home, I've discovered some of its foibles. The door pockets are too tight to easily get my wallet out. The buttons are too small to easily operate, and that can be a problem when you're driving at Vmax. And the wireless charging, it's terribly slow and overheats my phone. But you also discover the finer details, like the piercingly bright laser lights. They turned night into day and took the stress out of the last 250 km I covered at night.
So finally home after 1700 kilometers and 4 days on the road. What a trip it's been. Now it's been quite an eye-opener on several fronts and answered a lot of questions. Firstly, was the M8 comfortable? Absolutely. In fact, this seat is one of the most comfy seats I've been in. Now I've got a lower back problem, but not once did I emerge with a twinge or a little bit of an ache. I was just absolutely fresh. Yes, the ride is a bit stiff, but quite honestly, it has a nice level of compliance, and setting it in comfort mode, it just kind of rounded off all the sharp edges. The other thing I was worried about were these low pro tires. Again, the roads are really good, but even on those bad patches, absolutely no problems, not a puncture, not even a scratch on these tasty 20-inch alloys. Fuel. Well, I only got 99 octane in Jaipur and finally here in Mumbai. Didn't find it in Ahmedabad, I didn't get round to finding it. So it was on 91 octane throughout. Quite frankly, the car ran perfectly, a little down on power, but otherwise not a hiccup, not a sign of knocking. And that's really a tribute to this fabulous V8. And what this tells you is that you guys who have good cars, get out there and drive, because quite frankly, a car is the safest way to travel. It's your little bubble. I had this high-speed bubble and it was a bit of a gas guzzling bubble. 5.5 kilometers per liter, that was my average consumption. Yes, a bit of self-indulgence. I'm feeling a bit guilty, and as a bit of penance for kind of having this huge carbon footprint for the last 4 days, I'm going to be driving the Kona EV for the next 1 week.